Well, this one was fun. Lots of answers, questions, thoughts. Thanks to everybody that participated in this thing. I had some funny answers. I had some right answers, pretty much right. And I had some that were having me kind of shaking my head. Well, now this was a real problem. I wanted to reiterate that. This did happen in my career. And I want to go over a few things before I answer what the problem was in this. A lot of guys were thinking there were grounding problems, elements burning out. Elements do burn out. Most of the time they don't get past, well, here I've got an element here. This one actually was run dry and it burst through the copper jacket. But most of them just burn out inside and never make contact with this jacket. This one would have drawn power even if it was burned out, because the little element inside this thing would be exposed to the water and it would go through the water to ground. And it won't blow the fuses though. It will heat the water, depending on whatever resistance there is in the water. It will heat it some. But it's also accompanied by your faucet spitting at you, because it's breaking water into its component parts, and it's creating hydrogen and oxygen. And when it does that, that gas is what's spitting out. And that's one of the things that happens when you have an element that's done that. It also will not shut off with the thermostat. It will shut off with the ECO. The ECO will shut it down. But there's a lot of guys talking about that. There was also a lot of guys talking about the disconnect, and I wanted to explain something about the disconnect. The disconnect was, there was no discoloration in any part of that disconnect. The parts were not heating up. If I was doing it now, I'd use one of these things to see if I was overheating. We did not see any overheating during this thing, but the fuses did blow. Now, obviously, because the temperature or the electric bill was excessively high, the water heater was running a long time, probably pretty much continuously. I've seen this happen with fuses before. I'm not real thrilled with using fuses anymore for most disconnects. I love breakers. I think they're a better product. But some of these fuses I've seen, when the load has been continuous for very long periods of time, even if the connections are good, the fuses sometimes still blow. And that's what happened on this thing. The water heater was running continuously and the disconnect was in good shape, but the fuses still blew. Okay, what caused this thing to run all the time? Okay, here's a drawing of the way this was set up. Water heater's here, cold water coming in here, cold water also going out to the sprinkler here. Now, hot water is going over here to, you guessed it, a single handle faucet. There was our problem right there. Now, normally this would be cold water going into this. This faucet was leaking by because it has a continuous connection of hot and cold to it. When the sprinkler was running, this T became a siphon T. If I have water going this way, it will tend to want to move water from this pipe here, plus the pressure is lower than it is here. So with the pressure difference and the action of the siphon T, it's going to draw hot water through that valve and out to the sprinkler. I again asked the owner, I said, does that faucet work normally? Do you get hot water out of the cold side? And he says, yeah, it's kind of warm for a while. Okay, that was it. It was a Moen faucet. The gaskets inside it were defective, and so what it did was it took cold water here, drew in hot water here, mixed it, and we sprinkled the lawn with warm water. Very simple. One of the things I would try to emphasize with this is really hard to find problems. I mean, my dad worked in this thing for a couple of months, trying to, off and on, going over there trying to figure out what was wrong. It's always something simple. Now, how I determined this was not by going to the faucet. I started following the water. I assumed that we were getting hot water to the sprinkler because that was my thought at the time. So I went along and I felt this line. This is a steel line. Well, wrought iron, but it was cold, 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 warm. And this was warm. As soon as I saw or felt that this was warm, I knew that's what the problem was. I would encourage you, when you're trying to do problems like this, go back to simple. Simple tells you an awful lot sometimes because you've usually passed over it. You know, we went through all the things of overdraw, grounding, all these crazy things that could have been the problem. But it wasn't up in the sky that way. It was a simple piping problem. So, the faucet was a problem. That was the only repair that was needed. Everything else was in good condition. I'm going to do a few more of these. I have a few more from my career in this business that were goofy and had kind of long, drawn out repairs. And so I'll be doing some more of these. Anyway, that's it on this one.